so that we can get something that is ready for time.
I'll call the Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting to order. Roll call.
Bradham?
Here.
Manas Castillo?
Here.
McGuire?
Here.
Moran?
Here.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Here.
And Jean.
Here. All right. Motion to approve the agenda for January 17th, 2023.
So
presented
moved.
for approval.
Second.
All right. All in favor? No, or roll call? Roll call? Yeah. Okay, roll call.
Manas Castillo?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Bradham?
Aye.
And Jean.
Aye. All right, and then the next item is minutes from January 3rd, 2023 are presented for approval. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Manas Castillo?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Bradham?
Aye.
And Jean.
Aye. All right, so the next one is the Environmental Response Fund Grant Awards. I had gotten briefed on this too just last week about what this fund is. We will be voting on 2 grant awards, and if staff are here ready to just present, that would be great. And I just thought that this would be so helpful too, because we have, both new members on the on here too, to just kind of share the report.
Madam Chair, before we speak to it, could we get a motion and a second?
Yes.
So moved.
Oh,
Second.
okay.
There you go. Now we
Thank
can.
you.
Roll. Do we need to
No
roll
roll call
call
yet.
at
Now
this
we'll do
point?
discussion. And so
Okay.
now, Martha, can you give a brief update on the Environmental
Sure.
Response Fund?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. And so you are voting on 2 projects that would be funded by the Environmental Response Fund. And as I told Commissioner Zhang when we did the onboarding, the Environmental Response Fund is funded through the Minnesota Legislature. It's the Mortgage Registry and Deed Tax, which collects 1/100th of 1% of the value of transferred properties in Ramsey County for the purpose of cleaning up, remediating sites within the county ahead of redevelopment, and as the state's most densely developed county, essentially every development that we do involves redevelopment and often environmental legacy issues. So we manage the Environmental Response Fund jointly with the other brownfield grantors at the Department of Employment and Economic Development at the state, and then the Metropolitan Council's Livable Communities program. We have the same schedule. We market the funds jointly, and you'll find that a lot of the projects that are funded through this program are also funded by one or more of the other grantors. So it's a really good leveraging process that we have. So the 2 applications that you're looking at today are first the Hillcrest redevelopment site in the northeast corner of the city of St. Paul, which I know you're familiar with. It's the former Hillcrest Golf Course, and the site in total is 112 acres. This is the first phase of redevelopment, so it's 40 acres of that site. And the expected benefits, and we know this is a phased project that's going to be happening over some time, include construction of 323 housing units, 65 of which will be affordable. We don't yet know the AMI levels. 484 full-time jobs, and 429,000 square feet of industrial space. The funds will be used for environmental investigation, soil remediation, and environmental oversight. That's $300,000. They're also receiving funding from the Met Council, DEED, as well as the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And then the second project is the Lilly redevelopment in the city of North St. Paul. They're asking for $75,000. It's a 0.7 acre site located in downtown North St. Paul. It's 4 parcels that have had a variety of different uses, including a former gas station, So there's a variety of contaminants there, petroleum related and in the soil and groundwater. And the project is going to add 82, it's a residential project with first floor commercial, so 82 residential units, 20 of which will have rents at 80% of AMI, and then an additional 1,500 square feet of commercial space. And funds will be used for cleanup of petroleum impacted soil and soil vapor, removal of orphaned underground storage tanks, and asbestos removal. And this project is also receiving funds from DEED. So with that, that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of reminder note, just about these funds. I just want to be reminded about what these funds are for and how they're used. So are partners required to use these funds, or sometimes do we just give these funds out even if there aren't any partners or collaboration? Because I know the projects we usually see have, multiple partners.
Right. We don't Commissioner McGuire, we don't explicitly require partnering, but because of the nature of sites with environmental legacy issues, there's just that extra delta in terms of trying to ready the site for redevelopment. And so they're usually going to as many public sources as they align with. It's that kind of layer cake of funding. So not always, but usually.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of other questions, if it's okay. I noticed that we still have dollars available. So is this all the requests that we got? Because the requirements for these funds are kind of, they're stipulated. Mm-hmm. So can't just do it for any project. So there's, did we get requests that we didn't fund?
Commissioner McGuire and commissioners, so yes, we did have one project that came to requested funds, and they ended up, they're going to go to Met Council instead. So it was a project that was just seeking funds for asbestos abatement only as just part of a updating the HVAC within the project. And typically, we haven't funded that. We've tried to direct funds more for like soil and groundwater. We did fully expend our 2022 budget, just to your budget question. So you had $204,000 left. We had, I think, $454,000 in requests. So we were overextended. And the way that you're able to fund the $375,000 that's recommended is fully expending the budget. And then additionally, one of the projects, Lauderdale Senior Housing, has closed already from earlier this year, turned back funds that they're not using. So that contributed some. And then there's some additional uncommitted funds that we were able to free up to fund this amount.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, just one more.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a general question as well. So I noticed that it's for, petroleum cleanup and things like that. Can you just remind us, usually, you want the person, the entity that polluted to participate in that. So it's a gas station. So is that already been done, that you try to get as much, remuneration from the gas station as possible before they have to pay, before the public pays for it?
Right. Commissioner McGuire, that's a great question. So in the brownfields world, we refer to that entity, the original polluter, as a responsible party. And we do not fund responsible parties. So somebody that generated the pollution, we wouldn't be able to fund them. In this case, that gas station stopped operations long ago, so it's difficult to identify who that entity is. It was no longer in operations, and that often is the case, but yeah, it's the nature of things that we want those that have originated the pollution to clean up whenever possible.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Ortega?
I just wanted to your previous question, for the sake of the new members. This money comes from our share of the mortgage deed tax. And maybe 20 years ago or so, this money was just sitting there accumulating. We weren't doing anything with it. And then about 20 years ago, we started the 4R program where we moved to develop, clean up polluted land. We used it for various sources, so we started spending down that money. But we had initially accumulated quite a large sum. So to your question, we don't have to partner with anybody on that. It's just an evolution of how we've been doing business. But it's our share of the mortgage tax.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Zhang, or Chair Zhang, if I may, just to add on to what Commissioner Ortega was saying, this fund collects approximately $1 million a year, so that's kind of the magnitude. And we have that authorization through the Minnesota legislature, and there is a sunset, a 15-year sunset on the fund. I forget when it is, but it's in 2028. It might be the end of May of 2028, so that's just something to be aware of a few years down, that there have been sunsets in the past. The counties, because Hennepin County also has an environmental response fund, have asked the legislature to extend that funding, and it's been that sunset continues to be pushed out.
Okay, thank you for adding that. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Yes, and I remember when we first, it was authorized by the state legislature. We didn't do it to begin with, and then we did. And it has been incredibly important. And the idea originally, anyhow, was that it would be, but for the environmental cleanup costs, if they didn't have these funds, then the project couldn't go forward, because it was very difficult to get funds for that particular purpose. And so it's been very popular. It's one of those things, too, that we, just like with the HRA funds coming in now, that have stated that our goal is to try to do 50-50, so that suburban and the city of St. Paul. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. You know, I mean, it's not an exact science as far as the 50-50, because it depends on where the projects are and what they need and how it can move forward. I am excited about both of these, because these are Hillcrest, obviously, it's been in the making for quite some time, and it's exciting to see something moving forward there. And North St. Paul, I don't know how many of you have been to North St. Paul recently, but it is changing and is really an exciting opportunity here. With the Lilly redevelopment, that's where the Lilly newspapers had been run out of, but the building, and it was, and the gas station, and what was it, there was something else there, paint
sprayer.
Yes, I mean, there's environmental issues there, there's no doubt, and I think that this is something that is very badly needed in that area. And even though, and these are environmental response funds, so if people are out there going, well, wait a minute, you know, they're not part of our HRA. Well, that's not what these funds are. But it really was, there's very few things, I don't remember ever doing just a cleanup without a project. And so I think we've always had partners. Sometimes, a lot of times, the state of Minnesota is involved because of gas stations and different things that have been there, so that they take care of that. Ours is kind of, okay, now that we know what the shortfall will be because you can't get the project without this, that's where our environmental response funds come in. Now, the other thing is, oftentimes once they start doing things, you figure out either you can give money back because it's not as bad as you thought, or the opposite is, oh my gosh, there was stuff here that we didn't realize, and so they need to get some additional funds to move forward. But it would be interesting, especially for the new board members, but for us as well, that have been here for a while, is to see how many projects are there right now because of this environmental response fund. I mean, the stadium, downtown stadium, Commissioner Ortega was involved with that. In trying to get those last bits of funds, because there was environmental cleanup that had to happen there. And so there's a lot of different projects that you don't realize and oftentimes small percentage of money has made the difference of it being there or not, the jobs, the environment, all of the things that come with that. And so it would be kind of nice to get an overview. And I know that we get one every year, but I think that when you look at it over time, it's phenomenal.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Moran?
I was just wondering, what is the total dollar amount included in the environmental response fund now?
Commissioner Moran, are you asking like what is the annual budget that we have?
Well, just, I mean, there's a collection of dollars.
Right.
Yes.
So it does collect about $1 million a year. There is there is an additional balance that is there that is generally from projects that have not fully expended their funds. I think that's like in the magnitude of maybe $600,000, but that $1 million a year has been pretty stable over the last several years. I think it's increased slightly as the value of properties has increased, but yeah, that's about it.
Madam Chair. So there hasn't been any expenditure, so it's at 1.6 now.
With so earlier this year there was a round where the awards were about $608,000. This $375,000 will expend actually more than $1 million, or the budgeted amount for 2022 was about $802,000. So we're going to fully utilize that and then go into some of that previous reserve. I apologize, I don't recall at the moment. I'd need to check with finance what that amount is, but I think it's in the magnitude of about $600,000 that's left.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, I appreciate the report, and also what I heard from the discussion here is too also a request about like what projects have been funded in the past too. So that would be very helpful just for us moving forward as well. But thank you very much. I appreciate the report. Roll call.
Okay, so Maris Castillo,
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
Ortega. Reinhardt,
Aye.
Pradhan,
Aye.
and Jean.
Aye. Great. And using privilege as chair, I forgot to mention that this is a project, the Hillcrest, or now known as the Heights 2, is in the district. It's just a development project that a lot of folks have been asking about and have been engaged in the community for a long time too. And also sometimes folks think that golf courses, how can it be contaminated? But it is from it. So this is really helpful to help spur the development there and also meeting the goals of the communities. So I just wanted to add that about the Heights. With that, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
You just get to do that.
I
You have that
Okay,
power.
the HR. Okay. Our meeting is adjourned.
We'll take a 10-minute break.